In 2019, a British travel blogger ignored every warning, bribed his way onto an island, and started filming. Within minutes, he saw movement in the trees. He kept recording. The footage shows him smiling, waving at the shore. Then, arrows. Dozens of them. His body was never recovered, and by law, nobody is allowed to try. That island is still there. People live on it. And it's protected by the Indian government, which has essentially said, if you go there, you're on your own. But here's what keeps me up at night. That's not even close to the most dangerous place on this planet. Because some locations will kill you in seconds. Others will kill you slowly, painfully, while you're completely aware of what's happening. And one place, it'll kill your descendants, your grandchildren, people who won't be born for another 50 years. Let me show you what I mean. Picture this. You're driving through Russia, middle of nowhere. You see a lake, crystal blue water, absolutely stunning. You're hot, tired. That water looks perfect. You pull over, wade in, and within 72 hours, you're dead. Lake Karachay, Chelyabinsk, Oblast, Russia. For decades, it held the title of the most polluted place on Earth. But polluted doesn't capture it. Standing on the shore for 1 hour would give you a lethal dose of radiation, 600 Roentgens. For context, 400 Roentgens over your whole body is fatal. Here's what happened. From 1951 to 1953, the Soviet Union needed somewhere to dump nuclear waste from their weapons program. They chose this lake, just poured it in. Tens of thousands of tons of radioactive material, strontium-90, cesium-137, substances with half-lives of 30 years. Now you might be thinking, okay, but that was 70 years ago. The Soviet Union doesn't even exist anymore. Here's the nightmare part. In 1967, a drought exposed the lake bed. Wind picked up radioactive dust and spread it across 25,000 square kilometers. 500,000 people were exposed. The Soviet government covered it up. They tried to fix it. In the 1980s, they started filling the lake with concrete, literally trying to encase the radiation. By 2015, they'd poured 17,000 concrete blocks into it. The lake is essentially a radioactive tomb now, sealed under concrete and dirt. But here's what genuinely terrifies me about Lake Karachay. We only know about it because the Soviet Union collapsed. How many other places like this exist that we don't know about? In 2017, a Greenpeace investigation found radiation levels in the surrounding area still 950 times higher than normal background radiation. People still live in nearby towns. Children play in yards where the soil glows on Geiger counters. And because the contamination is in the groundwater now, it's spreading, slowly, invisibly, creating an expanding dead zone that will outlive everyone reading this. One researcher described it as a toxic legacy that makes nuclear war seem almost merciful, because at least war has an ending. This just keeps going. Let's talk about a place that kills in a completely different way. Not poison, not radiation, something far more primal. The Danakil Depression in Ethiopia, one of the lowest points on Earth that's not underwater. Temperatures regularly hit 50 degrees Celsius, that's 122 degrees Fahrenheit. The ground is neon yellow and orange from sulfur. There are pools of acid that will dissolve flesh, volcanoes actively spewing toxic gas. It looks like an alien planet. But here's the catch. People live there. The Afar people have inhabited this region for centuries. They mine salt from the desert floor the same way their ancestors did. They know exactly which pools are safe and which will kill you, which times of day are survivable and which will drop you from heat stroke in minutes. A National Geographic team went there in 2005 with professional guides, tons of water, all the right equipment. By day 3, Half the crew was showing signs of severe dehydration despite drinking constantly. One photographer passed out while shooting. Another developed chemical burns on his feet from walking on the salt flats because his boots had tiny cracks that let acidic brine seep through. The team leader said something that stuck with me. We had every advantage: technology, preparation, backup plans, and the desert almost killed us anyway. The Afar people do this with sandals and cloth wraps. But here's where it gets truly unsettling. The Danakil Depression is getting hotter. Climate data shows temperatures rising faster here than almost anywhere on Earth. Scientists predict that within 30 years, it might become completely uninhabitable. Not difficult, not dangerous, uninhabitable. As in, humans physically cannot survive there anymore, regardless of technology. And the Afar people, they're climate refugees in the making, watching their ancestral homeland transform into something that will reject human life entirely. Their knowledge, their survival strategies that worked for centuries, none of it will matter when the temperature crosses a certain threshold and human biology just stops working. There's a research station there that studies extremophiles, organisms that thrive in hostile conditions. The scientists wear protective suits, they have air conditioning, they work in shifts, and they're studying bacteria that might show us how life could exist on other planets. Meanwhile, the Afar people are outside in 50-degree heat mining salt with hand tools, because that's the economy, that's how they eat. Now let me tell you about a place where the danger isn't environmental, it's political, and somehow that's worse. The Darién Gap, a 60-mile stretch of jungle between Colombia and Panama. No roads, no infrastructure, just dense rainforest, swamps, mountains, and something else: complete lawlessness. Every year, hundreds of thousands of migrants try to cross it to reach North America. They go in knowing the risks, many don't come out. Here's what they face: poisonous snakes and insects, jaguars, crocodiles, rivers that can rise 6 feet in minutes from rainfall miles away. But the real danger? Humans. Armed groups control portions of the jungle: cartels, guerrillas, bandits. They rob migrants, assault them, hold them for ransom, and if families can't pay, those people simply disappear into the jungle. A doctor who volunteers at a medical station on the Panama side told reporters that everyone who makes it through is traumatized. Everyone. He sees machete wounds, gunshot injuries, snake bites that have festered for days, infections from drinking contaminated water. He's treated children who watched their parents die, parents who lost their children. And here's the most disturbing detail. The journey takes 5 to 7 days if everything goes perfectly, but most migrants get lost. Some wander for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, running out of food and water, finding bodies of people who attempted the crossing before them. In 2023, over 500,000 people crossed the Darién Gap. Think about that number, 500,000. That's more people than crossed the year before, which was more than the year before that. The route is getting more dangerous and more people are attempting it because what they're fleeing from is somehow worse. The UN has called it one of the world's most dangerous migration routes. But here's what breaks my brain. It's not a war zone, it's not a natural disaster area, it's just a jungle. And it's killing thousands of people every year because of geography and human cruelty combined into something uniquely terrible. One survivor described finding a clearing with backpacks scattered everywhere, dozens of them. Children's backpacks with cartoon characters, a wedding dress stuffed into a plastic bag, a Bible with a family tree written inside, all abandoned. Either people lightened their load to move faster, or something happened that made them leave everything behind. Okay, let's talk about a place so dangerous that scientists literally cannot study it properly, because getting data would require people going there, and sending people there is ethically indefensible. North Sentinel Island. That British blogger I mentioned at the start, that's where he died. But the real story is way more complex than dangerous tribe attacks outsider. The Sentinelese people have lived in complete isolation for an estimated 60,000 years. They're one of the last uncontacted peoples on Earth, and they've made it very clear they want nothing to do with us. In 1974, a film crew tried to make a documentary. They were greeted with arrows. In 1991, a government team made peaceful contact and took photos. More arrows. In 2004, after the Indian Ocean tsunami, the Indian Coast Guard flew helicopters over to check if they needed help. A Sentinelese man walked onto the beach and shot arrows at the helicopter. Here's what most people don't know. They have good reason to be hostile. In the late 1800s, the British colonial government kidnapped several Sentinelese people to study them. The adults died almost immediately from disease. The children were eventually returned to the island, probably carrying infections that killed more people. The Sentinelese learned that outsiders bring death. The Indian government has since established a 3-mile exclusion zone. You cannot legally go there. If you do, the government won't arrest you because they're not coming to get you. The Sentinelese will handle it themselves. But here's the ethical nightmare. We've probably already doomed them. Climate change is raising sea levels. Their island is low-lying. Storm intensity is increasing. At some point, probably within this century, they'll face an existential threat. Do we intervene? Do we force contact to save them? Or do we respect their autonomy and watch them potentially perish? There's no good answer, and that makes North Sentinel Island dangerous in a different way. It forces us to confront impossible moral questions about sovereignty, survival, and cultural preservation. Here's the pattern you've probably noticed. Every single one of these places is dangerous because of what we've done. Lake Karachay, our nuclear waste. Darién Gap, our borders and economics. Even North Sentinel Island is dangerous because of colonial violence that taught those people to defend themselves. But there's one more place I need to tell you about, and this one is dangerous in a way that makes all the others look temporary. The Zone of Alienation, Chernobyl, Ukraine. In 1986, Reactor 4 exploded. 30 people died immediately, then hundreds more from acute radiation poisoning, then thousands from cancer in the following years. And here's what keeps scientists up at night. We still don't know the final death toll. Studies estimate anywhere from 4,000 to 200,000 excess cancer deaths attributable to Chernobyl. That's not a margin of error. That's we genuinely have no idea. The exclusion zone around Chernobyl covers 1,000 square miles. By law, nobody's supposed to live there, but about 200 people do, mostly elderly folks who return to their homes despite the radiation. They grow their own food in contaminated soil, drink from contaminated wells, and weirdly, many of them are healthy. Scientists call them self-settlers, and they don't understand why these people aren't all dead. One theory, stress kills faster than low-level radiation. These people are happier in their ancestral homes, even contaminated ones, than they were as refugees. The psychological benefit might be outweighing the biological harm. It's a horrifying calculation. But here's the real nightmare. The sarcophagus covering Reactor 4 is failing. They built a new containment structure in 2016 designed to last 100 years. And then what? Who maintains it in 2116? What happens if civilization collapses, war breaks out, or we just forget about it? Because that reactor still contains 200 tons of radioactive material, and it's going to stay deadly for 20,000 years. 20,000! That's longer than recorded human history. We've created a problem that will outlive every government, every language, every culture currently on Earth. So here's what all these places teach us. The most dangerous places on Earth aren't dangerous because nature is cruel. They're dangerous because we made them that way, or because we've backed ourselves into corners where every choice leads to more danger. Lake Karachay will poison the ground for generations. The Danakil Depression is showing us our climate future. The Darién Gap proves that invisible lines on maps can be deadlier than bullets. North Sentinel Island asks questions about contact and autonomy we can't answer. And Chernobyl is a monument to how our mistakes outlast us. But here's the thing that actually gives me hope. We know about these places now. We're talking about them. Every single dangerous place I've mentioned is documented, studied, and monitored. We're trying, sometimes failing, but trying. The British blogger who died on North Sentinel Island, his family asked the Indian government not to retrieve his body. They said he knew the risks, he made his choice, and disturbing the Sentinelese further would dishonor his memory. That's wisdom. That's humans learning from tragedy. We create dangerous places, but we can also choose to stop creating them, to clean up the ones we've already made, to respect the boundaries we should never cross. The world has its danger zones. It always will. But maybe the point isn't to conquer them or avoid them. Maybe it's to understand why they exist and what they're trying to tell us about ourselves. If this changed how you think about risk, danger, or human impact, let me know below. And stay curious. Just maybe not too curious. Some islands should stay unreachable.